April 2nd, in history. In 1453, the Byzantine Empire clung to its last city. Constantinople, ancient jewel of Rome, stood surrounded, its walls facing the largest Ottoman army ever assembled. Sultan Mehmed II unleashed 100,000 troops and colossal bronze cannons against the city's walls. The 53-day siege had begun, the ancient empire's final stand. On May 29th, Constantinople fell. 1,000 years of Roman continuity ended. The Ottoman Empire rose as a world power, reshaping Europe, trade, and history forever. In 1792, the young United States had no unified currency. Merchants juggled foreign coins and paper scrip, making commerce chaotic across the new nation. President Washington signed the Coinage Act on April 2nd, establishing the U.S. Mint and the dollar as the nation's standard unit, backed by silver and gold. The decimal dollar became the world's first decimalized currency. Its legacy endures in every transaction made in America to this day. In 1800, Vienna was the heart of European classical music. A 30-year-old composer named Ludwig van Beethoven was about to make his boldest move yet. On April 2nd, Beethoven stepped onto the Burgtheater stage and conducted his Symphony No. 1 in C major, his first full symphonic work performed publicly before Vienna's elite. That premiere announced a revolutionary voice. Beethoven's symphonies would shatter classical conventions, bridging the elegant order of Haydn into the emotional storm of the Romantic era. In 1801, Britain and Denmark stood at the edge of war. Copenhagen harbor bristled with Danish warships, blocking British access to the Baltic Sea. Nelson raised his telescope to his blind eye, ignoring Admiral Parker's signal to retreat. His squadron pressed the attack, battering the Danish fleet into submission. The victory secured British naval dominance in the Baltic. Nelson's defiant gesture gave the world the phrase "turning a blind eye," used to this day. In 1805, a cobbler's son was born in Odense, Denmark, a poor, quiet town on the island of Funen. His name was Hans Christian Andersen. Born into poverty, young Hans escaped hardship through stories and imagination. He left home alone at 14, determined to become an artist in Copenhagen. Andersen's fairy tales, The Little Mermaid, The Ugly Duckling, have been translated into over 125 languages, shaping childhood imagination across nearly 2 centuries. In 1845, Paris was a hub of scientific ambition. At the Grand Paris Observatory, 2 brilliant physicists were about to change astronomy forever. Léon Foucault and Hippolyte Fizeau aimed a daguerreotype camera at the sun, capturing the first permanent photograph of our star, revealing sunspots in stunning detail. That single image launched solar astronomy. Photography became science's eye on the cosmos, a legacy felt in every space telescope launched since. In 1865, Union and Confederate forces had been locked in brutal trench warfare around Petersburg, Virginia, for nearly 10 months. On April 2nd, Grant's forces smashed through the Confederate lines. General A.P. Hill fell in battle, and Jefferson Davis fled Richmond that night. Richmond's fall sealed the Confederacy's fate. 7 days later, Lee surrendered at Appomattox, ending America's bloodiest war. In 1902, Los Angeles was a dusty boomtown hungry for entertainment. Electric lights were transforming city streets, and a new invention called moving pictures was captivating curious crowds. On April 2nd, Thomas Talley opened the Electric Theater, Los Angeles's first permanent movie house. For 10 cents, audiences watched an hour of short films on a glowing screen. That single theater sparked an industry. Los Angeles became Hollywood, and American cinema conquered the world, all from one 10-cent ticket. In 1917, Europe had been locked in devastating war for 3 years. America watched from the sidelines as German submarines threatened civilian ships across the Atlantic. President Wilson stood before Congress on April 2nd and declared the world must be made safe for democracy, asking for a formal declaration of war against Germany. America entered the war April 6th, tipping the balance toward the Allies. The U.S. emerged as a dominant global military power, reshaping the world order forever. In 1982, the South Atlantic became a flashpoint. Argentina's military junta, seeking to bolster its grip on power, set its sights on the remote British-held Falkland Islands. On April 2nd, Argentine forces landed on the Falklands, overwhelming the small British garrison. Stanley fell within hours, and Argentina declared the islands its own. Britain's decisive victory ended the junta's rule, hastening Argentina's return to democracy. The islands remain British to this day, a testament to a brief but bloody war. In 2005, the world watched as Pope John Paul II, the Polish pope who reshaped the Catholic Church, lay gravely ill inside Vatican City. On April 2nd, at 9:37 p.m., Pope John Paul II passed away at age 84, ending a 26-year pontificate, the second longest in history. His legacy endures, credited with hastening communism's fall, uniting billions worldwide, and transforming the papacy into a global moral force. In 2009, the world was gripped by the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. Global markets had collapsed, banks were failing, and millions faced unemployment. On April 2nd, G20 leaders gathered in London and agreed to inject $1.1 trillion into the global economy, an unprecedented act of international financial cooperation. The summit reshaped global finance, expanding IMF resources and tightening market regulations. It proved coordinated international action could stabilize economies in crisis.